So it is a pleasure to recreate the Talk of Tuckahoe that we did in 1991 when I was a village trustee, and we had a show here at Village Hall of the mayors who were still with us at the time. I remember Joe Fataruso joined us that night. I know that our mayor from 1965, Bob, were you mayor in 68?
75.
Mayor Bob DiAgostino, and Mayor Phil White joined us on that night.
Yes.
And
Frank Uvino.
Frank Uvino, I remember that. Frank was here that night. And Phil was always interesting to me that Phil decided that being tortured one term as mayor, he would come back for another term as mayor down the road. So I give you a lot of credit for that, Phil. And then we had my good friend John Fitzpatrick, right, who came after Mike Martino. And then our current mayor, Mayor Ecklond, who has been here now since 2011. 2011. And it is always wonderful, and I'm really excited to do this tonight because unlike many of you, I moved out of the village a few years ago. So when I come through again, I have a lot of questions about things that are happening. And what I wanted to do, the first thing I wanted to say to Mayor DiAgostino is that you served in the late 60s. When you look around the village today, I obviously come back and see aesthetic stuff, but does the village feel any different to you?
It really does, yes. Because don't forget, I served from 1968 to 1975. Both sides of Main Street were virtually empty once you passed Fairview Avenue. There were just huge billboards. So today when you ride down Main Street, East Main Street towards the town, it's unbelievable the number of buildings that we've got in Tuckahoe now that have been modernized, built brand new, some of them,
Right.
and it feels quite different.
It was interesting when I looked at, I remember when I had run in 1991, I remember always stating that there was about 6,200 residents in Tuckahoe. That was the number.
That hasn't changed much.
No, it has a little bit. As I looked, is that they estimate right now we're probably around 6,600. So about a 5 to 7% growth. But to your point is there seem to be a lot more buildings. A lot more where there were single-family homes have now prospered and grown to be bigger buildings. And I wonder that is there, Phil, is there anything, Mayor White, that you think looking forward, is there much more building that can be done in this village?
I think so. I think you're going to see further development up on Main Street, probably more on Lake Avenue where the businesses are. So yeah, there's room for change.
Now, Mayor Fitzpatrick, the one thing I'm always very interested in is that there was a lot of talk when I was growing up on Alpine Place about Marbledale Road, a very, very commercialized area, industrial, right? There were a lot of concerns about some of the businesses that had been there that today we would sort of look and go, environmentally, is that good or bad?
Absolutely.
What do you think, and what do you view the history going forward? What do you think about? And I heard do they have a hotel?
In the process, yeah, there's a hotel right now being developed there. I think that as Mayor White just pointed out, that we'll see further evolution of what happens. Even on Main Street, you always had businesses there, but as they've taken down other buildings, they've put up new buildings that have the amenities that a newer shop and a newer business are going to need. They need to have, places to store things downstairs. They need office space that 1900 mom and pop shop didn't necessarily have the same operation in place. And I think Marbledale Road, it was always my hope. We, with Mayor Ecklond and I, we rezoned that to a business district, trying to move the community away from its, past of industrial past. It's nothing that we could do, without it. It's a continuing process.
That seems to have been great foresight, though. That based on the small village that we had, an industrial. That was a bad.
Never seemed right.
That was a bad fit.
But I think that back to the roots of our community, it started as a quarry, and that quarry that's there is what really started the whole thing off. And I think that the businesses that are around that, I mean, we have people, I still have people that are yelling about, Tuckahoe Road traffic, but that Tuckahoe Road traffic, that Tuckahoe Road comes into Tuckahoe because marble and things and business trucks were going out of this at the beginning of the century, so, and 2 train stations are here because of those kind of things that have all helped us now, but we can't change that, but we can always, I guess, hopefully improve on, where we started, what our roots are. And
I mean, Mike, when you took over, one of the things that I know in the early 90s that we sort of went back and forth with, and I certainly battled Sheila Clark when she was on the board about this, because Sheila was very much about the aesthetics, the beautification of the village. And she was right. At the end of this all, she was right, and she put a lot of time and effort in. And did you find that as businesses change just their signage to sort of conform with one another, did you get good feedback along the way from the residents? Because today I have people who say to me, boy, Tuckahoe looks great.
Most definitely, Tom. And I think that, with the parks, the signages, and some of the legislation that was passed to kind of tailor the development, I think it was great. And in a broader sense, yes, you drive through and you see things, you say, wow, this is Tuckahoe. But going back some years, I even said at one point, I wrote about it, we weren't a sleeper community anymore. I mean, we came of age. And it's continuing through the efforts of these gentlemen and all the workers and everybody over time. But again, on an overview basis, Metro New York, it's getting bigger and bigger, and it's growing, and the state's getting smaller.
Mayor Ecklond, you're now 7 years as mayor. When you look to the future, you recognize that you only have so much really that can be developed, right? It's a small 0.6 of a square mile for this beautiful little place. That I've always told my friends in Manhattan, when you're looking to move to Westchester, move to Tuckahoe. Great diverse community, great schools. Nobody knows about us, so you can get a good home for a good price. What do you say, like, is the mayor going forward, is your agenda or your goals that you want to have when you look year to year now?
Well, it's funny, and some of my colleagues here, they've touched on it, that, we're really the best kept secret in Westchester, if not New York State. And Mayor Mike hit on it. You know what? People finally woke up and they said, wow, this is a very desirable community. I say over and over again, you touched on it, schools, but I think first and foremost, it's safety. There is no safer community to live in than Tuckahoe, New York. I firmly believe that. So, looking to the future, it's still, there are not a lot of parcels to go ahead and occupy with new structures. But you know what? There are still quite a few older structures, and it would not surprise me at all, as one of the mayors mentioned on Main Street. I would absolutely see some changes on Main Street. I think Columbus Avenue is going to be another targeted area for redevelopment. And of course, once the hotel is finished next spring, that's a game changer for Marbledale Road. That is absolutely going to trigger a whole slew of change along that corridor.
Mayor, I'm really, the idea of a hotel on Marbledale Road just fascinates me. From a standpoint of someone who travels a lot, who is staying on Marbledale Road?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because that was the question that we all asked when they first came to the village. And, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to become an abandoned property, or that, it would be a difficult business operation. Right. And, when I look at the investment that the developer is putting into it, I say to myself, that's a pretty big paycheck.
What brand is going in there?
It's a Marriott Spring Hill Suites.
Can't beat the Marriott
Yeah.
Spring Hill. That's
So,
and I think that that's one of the things that we all were shocked at what they would even, consider it. But they pointed out that there's Sarah Lawrence is right here, that, there's weekends when people come up. There's Concordia here. There's a lot of places that have weddings that are right around here. Leawood, Siwanoy, the Fountainhead. A lot of places that you can have and then there's people that we are as close. When I lived in Brooklyn, it would take me an hour to get to Manhattan. from Brooklyn. It takes you 24 minutes to get to Manhattan from here.
That's right.
The city itself, this is almost going to be an outer borough of our important city right
You know,
in New
that's
York.
a great point. As opposed to renting a hotel room in Midtown Manhattan, you could rent a room here probably for a lot less.
Yes.
People, as you know now, will rent hotels rooms in Secaucus, New Jersey, coming in one stop from the Lautenberg train station. So that really is a great idea. I mean, Phil, when you look at one of the things you had me talk about in 1991 that got written up in the New York Times, and it was your idea, was the consolidation of governments, right? Or at least the consolidation of services. Do you see as villages and towns always are trying to keep taxes low? I mean, that's really what you're trying to do, right? You kind of provide your services. You want a good police department, which we have here. We have a fire district, but that's taxed on its own, you know, for the town-wide. Do you see more opportunities long-term where people are going to buy into it more because we have, you know, I mean, look, I've always said this. I mean, in the town of Eastchester, we have 3 school superintendents. We have 3 police chiefs. Now, the police department never wants to hear that, but I said it for many years. Remember, and I'll tell this story, and I know all the mayors here have some good stories, and I want to hear them tonight, is when we had the gas tank over in our village yard for the DPW, it was going to cost us $75,000 to $100,000 to remediate the property. And we went to the town and we said, why can't we take the gas from the highway department, from their highway department? And we now do that, all the villages. Do you think there'll be other opportunities where we can share these?
Well, Tom, when I was mayor, I called for meetings, and we had several meetings with the mayors of Bronxville and the Eastchester supervisor, Calavita. We tried very hard. We offered to combine, as you said. Why do we need 3 police chiefs? Why do we need 3 separate of everything, right? And I just couldn't believe. I even took the village police cars and we put them on propane. Nobody else would. We tried it with propane. We later discontinued it when I left office. I don't know why. So we made every effort. Some of the newcomers to Tuckahoe don't realize that that Marbledale Road was so important in our history. There are 3 places down there where we took out 9 million cubic yards of some of the best clear white pure marble, and we had to fill this hole with 9 million cubic yards. And I remember once, God bless him, Joe Marinello calling me where the hotel is now. He was one of our police commissioners, calling me 2 in the morning and saying, I can't sleep. There's a terrible odor coming from the quarry. I said, Joe, what? I can't do anything at 2 a.m. He said, well, if I can't sleep, I'm not going to let you sleep. Now,
That sounds like Joe.
that was before we had a village manager. Thank God now. I hope you don't get those kind of calls. But
Oh, yes, for sure.
He calls me in New Jersey.
yeah.
That's funny.
So-
let me just interrupt for 1 second. So when did the village of Tuckahoe get a village manager?
Well, those 3 big holes were a tremendous asset. You know how many years we filled them without paying a dime? Look what we pay now for disposing our garbage. That was free. We should have never let Eastchester and Bronxville join us. We should have just kept it for Tuckahoe, since they wouldn't join us. And I'm sorry we did that. We should have saved it for just Tuckahoe residents. But it's done now, yeah.
Getting back to your question with regards to sharing services, we did that in a number of ways. As an example, we needed a machine to clean out all our catch basins. So we bought it on a town basis, and we shared. We get it 1 day a week. Bronxville gets it 1 day a week, and Eastchester 3 days a week. So those are some of the ways. But you also have to worry about what happens when you do consolidate. This happened back in the 30s when they wanted to consolidate Tuckahoe with Eastchester, and good old Sonny Dalton found out they wanted to put the incinerator down on Marbledale Road, that was the end of the consolidation. So there's a lot of things that goes into why don't we consolidate.
There are obviously a lot of good, and there are
Yeah.
some, I will say, some hurdles that you need to confront, particularly when when we were talking about consolidating the garbage department, and they said, "Well, we have different uniforms." I said, "Well, that's all the more reason we can't consolidate. We have different uniforms." I found that to be funny. But when did we get a village?
Sure, I can talk to you about that. You know, as everybody knows, I own my own business, and I understand the importance of you need to have a steady hand. You need to have a manager in every business. And, you know, one of the things we lacked in the village was a full-time individual who was basically running the show. You know, it's people don't realize, you know, the mayor of Yonkers, that's his full-time job. The mayor of Tuckahoe, it's really community service. So you, in watching Mayor Bob and him give his conversation in 1991, and he said it so true, which is that, you know what, it's really your second job, and it takes away from your primary job, your family, of course, but you give it everything you can. And in today's world, it became very, very clear to me and the board that we need to have somebody here. We had a village clerk who had worked here for 50 years. And, you know, pretty much by default, she was basically our village manager, village administrator. But when she retired, it was clear to me that we needed to go ahead and change. We actually had to do two things. We had to change the structure of village government. And once we did that, then we implemented the position of village administrator. And fortunately for us, at the time, and this is in 2014, Bronxville was, they had just spent a ton of money looking for a replacement village manager there. So we were able to utilize their search committee and all those results to grab David Burke, who's done a wonderful job. So
You're really happy with it now.
it's, you know what, when people ask me, and you may get to the question tonight, you know, what's the most important thing that you did while you were the mayor?
I'm going to ask Mike next.
Yeah, hands down. Hands down for me, it was going through that process and setting up this business of the Village of Tuckahoe with a village administrator. It's David Burke now. Of course, it won't be David Burke forever. But you know what? It is so vital. He has saved, you know, that position saves this community so much money just in weekly staff meetings, you know, monitoring the budget, you know, nickel for nickel on a steady basis. And at the end of the day, you have to have somebody who keeps all those department heads accountable.
Well, you know, you're all obviously very distinguished in your own right, in your personal careers and what you've done here. But, you know, to think just that you can come in and oversee a $4 or $5 million budget with all of the different moving pieces along.
$12 million budget.
$10 million. 12 million now? I mean, you know, it really shows that. I remember when we were here, you know, we had Phil, we had a little bit of problem with the person overseeing our finances at that point. You need to have trust in that. You need to make sure that you're applying for the right grants, et cetera. I mean, it's a professional job.
Sure.
And allowing you just to be the sort of the eyes and ears of what's going on for the people just makes all the sense. But
Tom, three things stand out in my mind quickly.
we're in no rush. We're going to be here for a while.
Okay. Every mayor, every one of the fellas up here contributed to this. We have, without doubt, and I don't think I'm being, you know, favored toward the village, one of the most beautiful village centers of any village in Westchester. When you come in at night, we got two railroad stations. We have Tuckahoe lit up, beautiful, the stores, everything. When I came in, we had 13 acres of rundown, dilapidated buildings on Columbus Avenue. And we took those 13 acres and converted them into our urban renewal project, our program. One of the highlights of that, just something kind of funny, we had a very old lady in her 90s that wouldn't be moved. We finally convinced her to move so we could knock her building down. She got very nice pay for that building, those 13 acres. When they went to knock the building down, they found in her closet $90,000 in cash. We had some very honest people who tore the village down because she got her money back. At that time, this was in the 60s. The other thing that stands out in my mind is during my time in office was when Martin Luther King was assassinated. We had real problems. We were lucky. We were the first village in Westchester which this board appointed the first black police chief. Anyone here remember Henry Norman? Sure. Henry Norman, our police chief, arrested his own brother for DWI. He was a straightforward police chief. He said, we met with Henry Norman. We said, what are we going to do? We've got input from the FBI. The people were coming from New Jersey, from Trenton, from all over to create problems in the villages. Every road coming into Tuckahoe was covered by our police to make sure the people that were coming in because they either live here or they were visiting. They were not here to cause trouble. We went through that terrible period without any problems. I don't remember any really serious problem because of Henry Norman and our police department, and I give them every credit.
I mean, I think that, Mike, I mean, do you sense that I mean, we have as I said when I opened this, that we have a diverse community, right? I mean, this is not a lily white community, right? It's been diverse since I lived here as a kid. And I have, the diversity only comes up when you look at statistics because we never looked and felt like we're just all from Tuckahoe, right? You went down to the corner park of Marbledale and you just play basketball. And I think that to what Mayor D'Agostino said, I mean, don't you feel like that was a sort of an easy one because it would take outsiders to cause trouble for us, right?
I talk to people all the time, people that have been here for years and folks that just moved in, and they say, some of them said, and some of them are wealthy, I could have been here, I could have been there, but that's not real.
Right.
This is real. I mean, you're not going to, be in other communities where once you get out of that shell, it's culture shock. So we've never had that problem. Matter of fact, on the crime side, and I think we've all had stories, when we had the big blackout back in the early 2000s, I had friends running properties in Brooklyn, Bronx, there, and here. Well, I sat here because we had a generator, and people just wandered in. We were like a beacon for those people that were stranded. But I think we had one little incident of that whole time because of our police department and our community. I think somebody's bicycle was stolen. I mean, in different places, people were getting hurt, killed, and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's as Mayor White said, I mean, this is a safe community.
If I can add to that, Tom, Tuckahoe has been designated as the first fully integrated community in Westchester.
That's right.
And there's a couple of things that stand out in my mind. We used to talk with Joe Yancey, and he said that when he went to school, he used to exchange his cornbread sandwiches with an Italian hero, with one of the other fellows.
That is funny.
And when Edward Woodward, who was one of the Tuskegee Airmen, he said he didn't know what segregation was until he got down to Alabama.
Yeah, no, I believe that. Mayor Fitzpatrick, so there are really, for all of us, there are reasons why we first ran. Why did we get involved? Why was the reason you decided, you know what, I got to run for public office in Tuckahoe?
You know what? You said that we were going to be throwing softballs at everybody all night long.
That's an easy question.
I'll say, I don't know.
There had to be a reason that you, and your answer could just be, because I wanted to serve my
No,
fellow
absolutely,
neighbor.
absolutely.
There was the softball.
He gave you the answer.
I know, Tom. I just wanted to
I
point out
know,
that we were, you were saying we were going to be serving meatballs up. You know what? I had been on the planning board first, and it was the first thing I ever did when I moved into town. I turned on the cable TV and saw the government happening on cable TV, in my living room. And my wife came in one day and said, "What are you watching? What is that?" And I said, "This is the government." I'm from the city. I'd been from Brooklyn, and that wasn't the way government was handled. Some guy didn't come out of his living room and start yelling and screaming about some preposterous thing. And I said, man, they're making the sausage right here on television every single night. I said, very interesting. And then Mayor Whitehead appointed me onto the planning board, the beginning of, a lot of development and changes that were happening in our community. And then, Mike was on it became the mayor, and then I still was on the planning board through those times. And then, it seemed like a natural progression. You just want to all try and help. You do. You want to see that it's going in a direction that, we're all in the same community together. It didn't matter that, Republicans and Democrats, those are one thing, but we're all in the same barn together, really. You don't want to burn it down while we're all in it, so.
Hey, John, I got a question. Did they tell you 1 or 2 meetings a month? Is that how they sucked you in?
Then there you are, right?
But speak a second about others who may be watching out there. I always thought that Mike was on the zoning board of appeals, right? You were on the planning board. Those are really boards that just, I don't think the average resident appreciates the time and effort that goes into them, and the important decisions that you make. To talk about that a little bit, to encourage others to come forth to do the same as you.
I think the way it happened with me, I graduated from the Naval Academy. I had just returned from Korea, and we bought our first home on 59 Oakland Avenue. I'll never forget that. And we were the first ones to move into that house. One night, never thought about this, someone knocks on my door, Mayo Trinchini, one of my neighbors. He says, "Would you like to run for office?" "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" "Well, we need someone to run for mayor or for trustee." I said, "What's that?" So he explained it to me. He was very nice, and he said, "If you change your mind, let me know." He leaves, and I talk to my wife, Trudy, and I said, "What do you think, hon?" She said, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, "Well, there are 3 things I always wanted out of life. I wanted to own my own horse, I wanted to own my own boat, and I wanted to run for office." I said, "I never owned a horse, but I have a boat, and here's a chance for me to run for office." But she said, "No, I think they're looking for somebody that's easy to beat because the other party has been in office for 25 years. They're looking for somebody to just run." I said, "Wow." I said, "What should I do?" So I decided if I'm going to run, I got to do it with my engineering background. I got to do this. I have to cover every house in Tuckahoe in 30 days. And I divided every address by 30. And every night I covered every house. And through that 30 days, Tom, I met everybody, whether they were Republican or Democrat, okay? And shook their hands, said, "If you'd consider me, I would be very appreciative."
You said, "I'm never going to get that horse. I got to win this."
But my secret, I had some very beautiful teenage girls wearing short shorts at the time at the railroad station, both Tuckahoe and Crestwood, and we were giving out free coffee and donuts every morning for 30 days before the election.
Yeah, I guess he was buying votes 50
That
years
is
ago.
a hell of
Mayor
a story.
Fitzpatrick, you have a,
I wanted
that's
to
a good
just say,
story.
though, that while Mayor Martino, Mayor Ecklond, myself, we did start in planning and zoning as like a little minor league understanding, but it is not the minor league. It really is not. Once you're in, it's really important. The development of the community, because the laws that we've even passed, all of us, zoning laws, we've all seen the mistakes, even on a one-family home, that we can all turn around and say to ourselves, how did we let that one in the net on us, And then we sit here, and then we pass that up to the village board, where the village board, they catch the flack on those things most of the time, but we need the community that are not just engineers or architects, we do need a little bit of everything. People that can read blueprints is always helpful, to what's going on, but we all started that way, and I think that it's important that the people that are at home that do turn around and watch this channel and see people getting crazy or, coming out and being part of their government, that they understand that they should reach out to the mayor at hand, because all of us wanted people stepping forward. I mean, I know it. I watched us all take anybody that came in that, we want assistance.
So, Mayor Ecklund, if there is somebody out there tonight or tomorrow when this is replayed, how would they go about finding out the different opportunities for volunteerism in the village of Tuckahoe?
Well, really, the first thing is, we have open government laws, and we have really done a fantastic job over the last 20 years in making sure that, you know, we have a very good website, that they can watch all these meetings, planning and zoning meetings on television. So it's so simple for somebody to actually just watch the meeting and say, you know what, I own a construction business, I'm an attorney, I'm, an engineer, I think, and I live here, I'm gonna be living here, I think I would like to step up and do that. They can reach out to us through the clerk's office, of course. And as Mayor Fitzpatrick mentioned, I started on the zoning board. Actually, I was served on the zoning board with Mike, and Phil appointed me to the zoning board. So it was, a great learning opportunity. And I actually served 4 terms as a village trustee before mayor.
And your dad
So-
was always supportive.
Yes, yes. Yeah, you have to have, your family, of course, has to
Your
support
family.
you,
Your
and,
dad was very-
your current family, because, you're spending a lot of time outside of your home. But for me, it's very important, especially if you have young children, that they see the importance of giving back to your community. My family's been in Tuckahoe since the 1800s, so this community has been very good to my family. And it's important that, I do, and I have one son, that he sees how important it is to go ahead and, volunteer and do things in your community. And when you're an adult, this is the perfect opportunity for it. So I want to thank Mike, because actually, people ask me when, how did you first get on the village board? And I always remember I was standing online in CVS, and my phone rings, and it's Mike, and he says, "What are you doing tonight?" And I'm like, "Gee, I don't know, I'm online at CVS." And he said, "Do you have a Bible?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he said, "Well, dust it off and come on down. I'm going to swear you in as a village trustee." I'll never forget that. So, that was in January of 2004. And then I ran in March of 2004 with Maria McHugh.
Yeah.
And we both won that year, and then every 2 years after that. So, yeah, it's very important. And the land use boards, the planning and zoning board, as you said, people do not realize how important. I say this all the time. You think my job is tough. You think our jobs have been difficult, or a village trustee. That's where the rubber meets the road. They are making the decisions that affect everything that's going on in this community. We can go ahead and pass a law, but we're not going to pass a crazy law, where maybe you can't have dogs out after 6 o'clock at night. That's not what you do. They are establishing what should be and where it should be.
Yeah, but you can change that dog law.
That's true.
You can't, with zoning, what I think we all learned, and it should be emphasized, those decisions run with the land.
Yeah.
Yes, you can do this. No, you can't do this. And if you, we had to always back off and say, hey, we like those people, but we're not doing it for the people. Even though they could be benefited, we're doing it because that's going to be the house, the home, the building, whatever, that somebody else is going to own.
It's not the snapshot of what you see there today. It's the vision of what's
The
going to
vision,
be there in
the
the
vision's
future.
very important,
Yeah.
and they really do a lot of work that we all need to appreciate. I'm gonna answer a question, and I want you to think about this. Is that when I thought about people, there were a couple of people who influenced me greatly. One was M. Francis Sonny Dalton, who was the former town highway. He was also Republican chair here. He was a character in many ways, who loved this community, loved Tuckahoe. But Ernie Zaki, who owned the Crestwood Market, I started working there when I was 13 years of age. I had the keys to the place there about 6 weeks later when I was opening up on Sunday morning, which I thought was the coolest thing ever. And Ernie, as I learned, he loved the history of this village. And when I ran, he sort of kind of got into it and then started encouraging me to do these shows. And along with Tom Kennedy, who was another person who would be up in a plane with me, with Ed Bonsi, who was a local pilot. Ed, I think, is still with DHL, flies across the world all day long. He took us up for a talk of Tuckahoe over the village. We flew out of Westchester County Airport, and Tom Kennedy, I thought, was going to get sick. I mean, so he just put the camera and sort of, and so, but it was people like that that really made me love every day. And so, Mayor D'Agostino, who was somebody in the community, an elected official or a neighbor, that really every day kind of stayed on top of what you were doing?
I would say Frank O'Rourke, who was the Eastchester Town Council president. And when I saw the work he was doing in Eastchester, I said, why can't we do the same thing in Tuckahoe? Now, Tuckahoe seemed to be on a level plane. It didn't seem to be trying to grow a bit as the town was. And now when I look back, it's our village that's beautiful. It's the center here right in Tuckahoe, downtown Tuckahoe, is beautiful.
Now, why does
Now,
why
if
do people
if you go to the town,
Dog's name?
well, if you go to the town of
Little League
Eastchester,
field is named after
where is the center of the town of Eastchester? It's like Tobacco Road up there. Is it Mill Road? Is it the North End? I don't know.
I don't reside.
Where's Eastchester?
So what are they doing up there? What are they doing?
I'm
Ever since I
sorry,
left the
Tony
town board,
Calavita.
What are they doing up there?
Yeah, I know that we took a part of the village, 13 acres, and we tore it down, and we rebuilt it from north of the ice cream store, north 13 acres to the community center, and that was the turning point, I think, because it gave everybody else. Every other businessman said, oh, I'm going to fix my building. I'm going to fix my building. And I think that's what.
Became a competition. It did.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, in fairness to the town, though, I mean, one of the things that I noticed, particularly when I was up there, was that you have to deal with the congestion and the traffic.
Yeah.
That is always a problem. There is not an easy way to fix. And once you have that traffic, it becomes a little bit much different than what we have here.
That's right.
Mayor Fitzpatrick, so who was there somebody, was it your wife? Was it your neighbor? Who was there somebody?
Definitely
who
not
sort
my
of-
wife.
Oh,
My
not
wife's
your wife.
out there, but she was not my wife. She was throwing rocks at me as we were
Was she
embarking on this.
saying, what are you doing?
Always. That's what. And even my children were always like, "Oh man, what are you doing, Dad? You got to be the mayor. Why are you going to be the mayor?
Just be trustee.
Right? And just be Dad sitting out on the porch or whatever." But no, I don't know. I can't think of. I mean, I've had a lot of people that have come up on, and Ernie. I appointed Ernie to
Yeah.
fill my seat when I became
And
the
that
mayor.
was one of the things that I personally was like,
It was
wow.
It was hilarious, because
I don't-
Ernie was such
that
a
was not Ernie.
character, and
Right.
and then when he said to me, he goes, "I'm going to be my own man here, Fitzpatrick," and I said, "Ern, I wouldn't have it any other way,"
Right.
And we had an evening one night. It was really funny. And so we're voting. A guy wants to bring a hot dog truck. Do you remember this?
Oh, sure.
Into the village square, and he wants to sell hot dogs, right? So the business people come out, and they're screaming. They're saying, we're paying taxes, to run our business, have whatever's going on. And this guy, you're going to give him a $100, whatever. He's going to pay $100 for a permit. He's going to set up and sell hot dogs. So I said, those all seem legitimate. We'll take a vote on it. So Ernie turns around, and Ernie votes yes for the guy to get this permit. Everybody else votes no. So nobody pressed Ernie on what he needed. And Ernie just went like this. I love hot dogs. And then he leaned back, and I was like, all right, Ernie loves hot dogs. The motion doesn't pass, but Ernie had his, there were some things that didn't matter. I mean, history, Ernie loved it. And,
did love
he wanted to protect a lot of things, which was wonderful. And so he was somebody that was definitely,
That's a great story.
By the way, Tom, you didn't do it for the money. When I ran in 1968, the mayor made $1,500, not a month, not a week, for the whole year. That was a lot of rubber chicken that I had to buy during the week, right? In Eastchester now, the town supervisor earns, I think, close to 100,000, 110,000. You can feed your family on that, right? I don't know about Bronxville. I think Bronxville they also serve for little or no
They probably serve.
no money. Yeah, yeah. So you didn't do this to make any money.
I mean,
You
look,
you had to be concerned.
and the other thing
about-
is I noticed
yeah.
is that with Mayor Fitzpatrick is that he was appointed by Republicans to the board.
Absolutely.
And the one thing that I always felt very strongly about was that when you sit behind that desk and you get a call from a resident, you're not asking, what
Yeah,
party are you in?
You're
No.
You're a resident whose garbage isn't being picked up, and
No.
you just have to solve the problem. And
No.
I felt the same way when you're serving with people. You're here for the benefit of the people, not your political party.
But I learned that from these men also. They appointed people that were Democrats, they appointed, and then you keep that same spirit. You appoint people that are Republicans, you keep moving
And
forward.
I'm glad
know?
you hear that, because that is
I think
an
it's
I was
always
your
been-
deputy mayor.
Right, he was my deputy mayor, that's right.
That's very important, because at this level, it is never, there was a time that when we had the cabaret license, Phil, you remember this, over where
Oh, Coastal North?
Coastal North. Every Thursday night, that gentleman who lived on Lincoln Avenue would call me every Thursday night at 11:30.
Livingston Disbro. No?
No, not
Oh,
the name,
okay,
but,
okay.
and I would go down there every Thursday night at 11:30, and I would just have to hold his hand and say, I can't do anything about this. They have a cabaret license, and, you know, if they're not breaking any laws tonight, but every Thursday I would go down and hold his hand. And that's what you have to do. I didn't call him and say, well, what party are you in? Who'd you, you know,
Right.
it's just you got a problem. You got to go fix people's problem.
yeah.
So, Mike, was there somebody who, as you came along after Phil, that you sort of worked closely with, or somebody in the community? Was there a big issue that sort of, you know,
Kind of all of the above. Not one single person or event. Phil pushed me with the one meeting a month type thing. Sonny Dalton, we talked earlier, he got me involved early on as well. But my family, the Alberto family, they were here from the 1800s, and my wife and all the in-laws said, hey, you know, we need something, you know, done here. Get involved. I had some experience with some other organizations that I led, and I tried to bring some of those aspects here, like the town meetings. We never had town meetings where we moved meetings around, and that I learned from someplace else. But, you know, again, everybody, neighbors, and yes, there was one or two issues where I think they made me ad hoc resident president or something, resident group, and it was a development issue, and it was harmful. I think it might have been a supermarket in a residential area. And I said, no. And then Phil and others said, we need you. And they pushed me.
that's great. We're lucky that. Mayor White, you have served this community in many, many different roles for a very long time, and it never ends. You and Alice have put so much time into this community to make it what it is today. How did you decide? Was somebody come to you? Did a Francis O'Rourke or a Sonny Dalton or a Bob D'Agostino came to you?
I knocked on his door one night. I had been in office for going on 8 years. I was getting tired. I have 4 kids. They didn't know me. And I said, I'm going to see my good friend Phil White if he would be willing to join.
You did that to your friend?
Because I think every guy up here, there's going to become a time when they say, I've done the best I can, and it's not fun anymore. It's got to be fun, by the way. If it's not fun, you're not going to do it well. And I knocked on Phil's door, and he opened the door. I said, Phil, would you like to join our local club, political club? He said, why not? Why not? And I think you were working for AT&T at the time, or New York Tel. I don't remember. So he came, and that was the story. He blames me for
Everything.
getting him involved in politics.
Yeah,
And I'm so glad I did, because Phil, I think, served longer than any other mayor. And even today, he and his wife, beautiful wife Alice, who's here tonight, they took all the records in the village of Tuckahoe that were a mess. They put all those records in order. Anyone could come in here now, look up at any particular period of time. The work they did, you can't count the hours, Tom, that this couple put in for the village.
So, Phil, do you
Yeah,
ever say
yeah.
to yourself you'd like to run again?
I'm looking at Alice over there.
No, now we're just enjoying our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. But Bob is right. He's the one that influenced me into getting involved in the planning board and trustee. And when it came time for Bob to retire, everybody walked away.
Yeah.
It was really an exciting experience and scary at times. Now, you mentioned about some people influencing me. Bob, of course, was the first one. And I have to say something about Tony Calavita Sr. You never met a person like him. He always smiled, no matter how aggravated he was. And we worked together on his campaign. And when it came time for President Nixon to come to town, we worked night and day down at the headquarters, doing so many different things. I know the girls are making the calls to get everybody out. And
No, a lot of people don't know that. Phil, talk about that. I mean, President Nixon came to tell where did he go and what did he do here?
he stopped at the memorial up there in Eastchester by
White Plains
California Road.
right?
Yeah.
California White Plains Road.
And I'm going to write a story about this one day, because what very influenced me was the fact that of his wife, not so much Nixon, but she had a look on her face, and I still see it to this day. She smiled, but you could see fright behind it, because this is a time where the assassinations are going on. The floorboards are covered with machine guns, and it's just a sight that you couldn't believe. And then they came down to Tuckahoe, and what a stunt you pulled. He had all the seniors seated in front of Village Hall, and he was invited to come out, and he said, "Oh, no, the Secret Service wouldn't let them out." Well, he went over and grabbed the president's hand and said, "You got to talk to these seniors, because we have them waiting here a couple of hours. They have to see you." Congratulations, you did it.
I did too. The survival technique. I was never used to someone. I was 32 at the time, but the youngest mayor in Westchester. How am I going to handle? I've never done this before, right? I'm just coming back from the Navy in Korea, and people are coming to the meeting yelling at me, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? How am I going to? No one ever gave me any tips on that. So I sat down at home and I said, you know what I'm going to do? If someone is really there because they care, if they look like they really mean what they're saying, I'm going to try to answer the best I can. If they're there just to annoy me or just to aggravate me, I'm going to come up with an idea. And here's what my idea was, Tom. If the guy was there to annoy me, I say, and he would say, "Why don't you do this?" Or why? I say, "That's a great idea. A great idea. I'm putting you in charge temporarily. You're going to be the temporary head of this committee. You pick anyone you want. I'd like you to come back at the next meeting with an outline of what we're going to do, and I'll support you 100%. If he came back, he was for real. If I never saw him again, I said, okay, he was just there. He wanted to hear himself talk. And I'm not just blaming Democrats or Republicans. Both parties did that. Both parties. And also when we would go around trying to meet people, get them to vote for us, another cute idea, they would call ahead and say, "D'Agostino's on your block. Look at," if he was the opposite party, they try to keep him there. Offer him a drink. Offer him. Don't let him finish the block. Keep him busy. So when I could tell, if they wanted me to come in and sit down and start talking, I'm sorry, I got to finish the block. So these are little tricks you learn to survive in a small community, because you don't have national TV with your name plastered up and down. You have no money to run. So all these little tricks are very important.
Mayor Ecklond, I want to ask you that question. Sure. Have you found at all, because in a small village like Tuckahoe, has social media, which didn't exist when a lot of us were around.
We didn't have it.
Right, and I didn't have it even when but has it for you? Have you found that on social media has made your life better or worse in some cases?
Believe it or not, I'm not going to say that social media has made it, to me, social media is Facebook, I guess.
Are you
so.
tweeting? Do you tweet?
No, I don't even know
All
what
right,
a tweet
I
is.
didn't know if you would tweet. I'm sorry.
So you don't?
I'm not a
Who here
tweeter.
tweets?
Yeah, so.
Not me. I don't.
I have 16,000 followers on Twitter.
But I have to say that, for me, we were really just starting to use email when I first got on the board. And that was just unbelievable to be able to exchange and be able to get quick answers as to, can we all meet, can we, get together, can we schedule a meeting, just things like that, because everyone's working during the day. So to be able to have access like that, to me, was fantastic. And, one of the things I wanted to talk about, you asked about influential people, and I'm going to get to that. But first thing I want to say is that, and I'm sure everyone can agree with this, when you first are elected to office, if you're elected to, like Mike was, He was not a trustee. He was elected as mayor. I can't imagine how difficult that is. I mean, I served with Mike. That is extraordinarily difficult. For me, I had the benefit, I was trustee for 7 years, and then I was elected mayor. So you really understand the process. But I have to tell you, it takes you 2 years just to figure it all out. And to be able to, to run and become mayor, that I really give all the mayors who never served as a trustee, I give them an awful lot of credit. I know that Mayor Fitz, he was a trustee for a year, so he had that 1 year window, but it is an incredible responsibility and very, very challenging. So it's a lot more than one meeting a month, that's for sure.
There is. And
But the individual, for me, aside from my dad, who was, of course, I worked with my dad, and he was a huge influence in my life. Believe it or not, I'm going to say, for me, and I've said this to many people, it's Phil White. I really think that Phil White, he just epitomizes what a local village humanitarian, civic leader, that's Phil. I mean, Phil, aside from the fact that he served in public office, he didn't just walk out of Village Hall after his term was up. He's here every week. He's here with his lovely wife, Alice, and he's everywhere. I mean, to be able to, nobody has put back into the village as much as Phil has, and I really, really admire him for that.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, I second that, and I think
Yes.
people around the village do that. That ultimately it is the stuff that you really do after you've left office. I mean, look, a lot of us run for office with the idea that we want to give to the community, et cetera, et cetera. There are a lot of us who find we like sitting up there and being on local cable access, et cetera, right? Let's be honest about that. We all think, oh, I saw myself on TV. But it's what happens afterwards. And Phil and all of you, Mayor Ecklond, you're still here, but the rest of you, to some degree, always stay involved some way. And that is really a testament to how much you love the community you live in. Whether you stay in Tuckahoe, whether you go somewhere else, you always tend to be part of the community, and it's people that we need. Because otherwise, all of these great things we don't discuss. The former president coming to our town, who, most people come to Tuckahoe, they don't know that sort of stuff.
And I shook his hand up there in Eastchester as a kid, yes.
And that's a great story that you can tell your kids and tell your constituents, et cetera. They don't know about King's Electronic when, when we're now going to have a hotel on Marbledale Road. And those stories through cable access, et cetera, should always be told. So it has been almost an hour. And Mayor Ecklond, I want to let you sort of start the wrap up tonight, because it was your idea to do this tonight. And then I want to give everybody an opportunity to sort of leave with their thoughts on where we are and what they hope for this wonderful little community that we've all called home at some point. And so I want to thank you for inviting me a couple of months ago to do this. It's been fantastic. It's good to be home. My mom still lives here.
She's my neighbor.
She is your neighbor. And, I remember August of 1973 moving into Tuckahoe. And it has always been something that many people to this day, because my Twitter name is @Tuckahoe Tommy, will call me Tuckahoe. And I'm very proud of that. So, Mayor Ecklond?
Yes, I just want to thank you, Tom. For you to come and do this, to me, is very, very special. 27 years later, to be able to come up and do this, I think is wonderful. And we will replay this. We'll replay the original meeting kind of back to back. I think it's very special, and I just don't think you get that in a lot of communities today. So, it's these men here on the board who really have made that happen, and I'm so indebted to them. I want to thank them so much for taking the time out, saying yes, and doing this. I think it's just fantastic for our kids to go ahead and see this, and for new people who are moving into the municipality to go ahead and see, to listen to what we're talking about, because they're new residents. They do not have that historical perspective. So I think it just shows what Tuckahoe is made of. Whatever party affiliation you are, it really doesn't matter. As somebody said earlier, it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican and Democrat when it comes to picking up your garbage and making sure that your community is safe. And I think that we've shown that. I think that the boards over the years have really shown that. So, I'm very, very optimistic for the future of Tuckahoe. I think it's, as I said earlier, it's an extraordinarily desirable community. You know, I have every week people come up to me and they're like, wow, you've done such a great job. And I consistently say, it really isn't me. You know what? I happen to be a placeholder here today. It's really all the work that these fine gentlemen that are sitting to my left have done. And it's, you know, I absolutely am not going to take credit for it. I was there for part of it. I was only one, you know, cog in that wheel. But it's all the hard work and it's the vision that each one of them have had that has really gotten us to where we are today. I have family on, you know, my side of the family and my wife's side who are old Tuckahoe, and I always quote my father-in-law, who says, you know, for years his family had a business right here on Main Street, and he said, and it's incredible. It seemed like progress just passed over Tuckahoe, and everything else was developing, and everything else was thriving, but it wasn't happening in Tuckahoe. But you know what? This is our time, and you know. Sometimes I'll have some people who will stop me in the street and they're angry with that because they don't want change. They don't want to see things change. But, you know, like it or not, it's you really can't control that change if it's going to happen. If you build it, they will come. You know, it's a field of dreams, and we're living the dream here. So
I think that everybody, all five of you, we really owe each of you a debt of gratitude because, as you said, look, you don't do it for finances. And regardless, I always went into it looking at individuals like yourself. Look, we could disagree about something, but I really knew in my heart that the decision you were making was what you thought was best for our community.
Very true.
And I really think the people out there should always keep that in mind, that you make that decision based on the knowledge you gather from talking to department heads or whatever, and you don't do it because your friend needs something done. You do it because you think it's best for the community. And so, Mayor Fitzpatrick, did you ever have a time when you talk about your kids? Like, I always thought, like, it'd be cool to be mayor because I would just have my kids. I'm not dad, I'm the mayor.
Right?
Did you ever say, hey, I'm the mayor now?
No. No, they wouldn't give me any of that credence. That would. But I was going to say, as you know, we're talking about people that are, you know, I can remember most the people who are mad at me, and you know, that's pretty much the funniest thing of it. You know, I had a gentleman I used to have office hours on Thursday night, and one night, hot summer night like this, like 100 degrees, up shows this gentleman, a older guy in his 90s. He was blind. I think we all know Mr. Shirley, right? So he walks in, and I had voted against ETPA, some rent control thing, right? And so he walks in, he says, "You're an apostate to democratic values, you Judas," and he goes at me for about maybe 20 minutes or so. And then he says, "All right, I need a ride home. Let's go." So I take him downstairs because he was blind. And, you know, I took him, and then I had to lift him up and put him in the car. And then I took him to his house. I took him out of the car. And then he said, "This ride doesn't change anything, Fitzpatrick." So I said, "All right, no problem." I had, you know, that individual always made me laugh. And then I had a guy about a year after I was the mayor standing outside my house. And I don't know what I'm doing. And he says to me, "What are you doing?" So I said, I don't know. What's the matter? You know, what am I? He goes, "You haven't been the mayor for a year, and you're still living in the mayor's house here." So I said, "This house is my house." So, you know, the electorate that's really clued into what's going on in our community apparently felt his taxes were going to my home, where the next mayor should be moving into my house, that was the house of the mayor. And I was like, no, I had this house before I got here, you know, before I was the mayor, you know, and he was like, "Well, I think the next mayor should live here and you should be gone," you know. So I remember those people the most, the people that are, you know, when I see them, you know. But
It's always the people who appreciate you don't bother to tell you they appreciate you.
no,
A lot of people appreciate
yeah, you forget those because the others are stuck so closely inside your heart. But anyway, I think we're going in the right direction always. I really do. I think that it's an evolution. And I think that we have a real strong business community. They're always busy, you know, putting their input in. You know, we have businesses that have been here for really a long time, you know, and we have new businesses. And I think they're always giving us input. I think the new residents showing up, they're going to come with new ideas too, hopefully. And I think it's a great place to be. I really do. And I hope that I hope more people keep coming in and enjoy it the way we've enjoyed it.
I'm going to let the elder statesman go last, but Mayor Martino, you have something you want to leave us with tonight?
Yeah, first of all, one of the people I've left out that got me involved, and I said it's not one single person, was you. Over dinner a few times, I think you kind of lied to me a little bit, the one meeting per month stuff, but you encouraged me, and I think I appreciate that, and I think I thank you. No, seriously, I did appreciate your support. But, you know, we've all dealt with crime prevention, taxes, municipal services, you know, dealing with constituent complaints and whatnot. And that's something that, you know, we've all done our best with. And I think one thing that keeps in my mind the most is what I try to do with community spirit. And we've all done it. But I'm particularly proud of the Winterfest. Phil did the fireworks on the 100th, and then for lack of money or whatever, it didn't happen again. I said, you know what? We're going to do that every year. And John kept it up, and Steve and everybody else. Like I said, the Winterfest, we started with literally a tin cup for a winter festival with reindeer and stuff for $300. And now, thousands and thousands and thousands. And that's important. But, you know, I've had roots here. I'm a newcomer, maybe 40 years. But my wife's family, my kids, whatever, and they got me involved in sports, commissioner, this, that, and the other thing. But I'll leave you with this thought. Yes, I think Tuckahoe is no longer a sleeper community. It's, you know, there's a lot more to be done. We have to preserve the community way of life that we all cherish. And I think that we are going in the right direction, and it's important. And Tuckahoe will grab you, and you're going to get sucked in a positive way and become part of the fabric. And we all do our thing after we leave office. I have, and I'm sure everybody else has. So it's contagious, and it's a good contagion.
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. Mayor White?
Well, I've always known that Tuckahoe is an unusual place, but I never found out to what extent when we had the fire at Marble Hall. We had to put people over there into the community center. The merchants came out, Epstein's, they bought underwear, socks, and whatnot. The drugstore brought over prescriptions, no charge. The school cooked lunches. The kids up at the school cooked lunches, brought it down here. They brought in old clothes, and when we finally got the people situated, we had a truckload of clothes that wasn't used. I mean, people didn't need that much. So anybody that says anything about Tuckahoe, they're not going to get that from me, that it's not the right place. It's a beautiful place to live. And you, Tom, epitomize the old saying, you could take the man out of Tuckahoe, but you can't take Tuckahoe out of the man.
That is true. That is absolutely true. Thank you, Mayor.
Before you leave us,
Yeah.
you took those photos. I'm not sure where they are. You were going to off the wall in the hallway?
Oh, I did. The photos are out in the hallway.
Oh, okay, all right.
Is it possible you could grab those? Judge Fuller is here.
The
I have
judge is with
not
us.
seen the Judge Fuller, and literally it must be, I would think it's probably 30 years.
This is one of the truly distinguished members of our community that continues to serve.
As I said, I didn't realize, was it, David, was it 1987 when you first got, what year was it, 88, 89?
When I first was appointed by Judge White, by Mayor White, in 1981.
He's
1981.
1981 by.
But then you ran, 86 was when I met you in 1986. Right. That was the race in 1986, and I didn't realize that we were giving you a Supreme Court appointment for life. Right? It's turned out well. You've done well.
And Tom,
No,
that
they-
lovely lady who just handed you those pictures, I want to thank Jackie Ferretti so much.
Jackie
She-
is the
she
deputy
put this
village
together.
clerk, and she put this all together. I've been in contact with her a lot, and she has been wonderful to deal with.
Yes.
Very, very helpful. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie.
So the last time around, what I did when we did the show in 1991 is we have photos that are out in the hallway of all the mayors, and so you see the mayor here tonight. You see what they look like, and I thought I would hold up the photo of Mayor Mike Martino, and Mike, you pretty much look the same. I mean, same 2003 to 2007, same smile, same happy look, but that's a great look.
He's got
Now-
a tan now.
Yes, he does. And speaking of
Mike, you haven't changed.
speaking of tans,
Try not to.
Mayor Fitzpatrick, good-looking man, 2007 to 2011,
Without my glasses.
without his glasses.
No change.
This is a great photo, though. And let me just ask you, do you mind? How old were you here? 2007?
I'm
10 years ago?
I'm 55 now.
So 45.
45.
45. You gave the best years of your life to this village.
No, it wasn't.
years
It
of
wasn't
life
even
in the
10
village.
years ago. I was
2007.
2000. Oh, when I started. Yeah,
when
yeah,
you
yeah,
started.
yeah, yeah.
So 45.
Yeah, 45.
It's a great shot.
What a mess. What a
You had more hair.
a little more hair. That's true.
So this is now this is Mayor White. Now we don't know what circa this is, either 75 or I think this is 75 because 91 I ran with him in 91. This is Mayor White,
Wow.
right?
Age takes its toll.
Show the audience too, Tom.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
Oh, you
they-
could
they
see
can
it.
on
Okay.
the monitor there.
Were you working at the time?
But you look very serious there. Isn't that a
was it a phone
serious,
company?
serious shot? And then we're gonna leave. Oh, whoa. See, when I did the show last time, I had a lot of help, a lot of production help here.
It's leaner days,
Yeah, it's
leaner
higher profit
times.
I was on the board then. I had people who answered to me at that point. And I'm going to leave the current mayor to last, but this is a classic. 1967 and 1974. Bob DiAgostino, those frames are back in style today. That's right. Those frames are back, right? I mean, don't you think that they have come back?
I was 32. I can't believe it.
You were 32 there.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, do you remember who took these photos? Do you by any chance remember who took this photo?
You?
No, in 1967 I was 4. I was 4 in 1967.
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Okay.
I don't remember.
That's Mayor DiAgostino, somewhere between 1967 and 1974, probably taken closer to when you left, I would think.
Yeah.
Right. And then last but not least, Mayor Ecklond looks like there was never a concert he didn't like. Right? Right, Steve? I mean, this looks like you're out having a good time, and we're just going to keep the train rolling, right?
Keep it going for sure.
So-
Still go to the concerts.
Right.
so.
And so, you really should probably, put these up on, your website. That would be a great thing. I mean, I looked, I remember when we did Mayor Frank Uvino, that was really a lot of fun back
Yeah.
when I interviewed him back in 1991 because,
Yeah.
I didn't know him. We certainly didn't, and I learned a lot just talking to him, and so that's why, I mean, the gentleman here tonight, I know most of you in one way, shape, or form,
Yeah.
but it was really nice to meet him
Yes.
that night, and I think there are just so many things historically, as Phil and Alice do, and all of you do, to put it up on the website, like these photos, to show people, what was going on years and years
Yeah.
ago. So I just want to say thank you so much for having me do this tonight.
Oh, thank you.
It is fantastic being back in my home. This will always be my home.
Thank you.
The community is fantastic because of the 5 of you and so many others, your spouses, et cetera, who allow you to give this time, and they should be thanked all the time. And so I'm going to just leave the last word for Mayor Ecklond. It's your village now. It's your show, and thank you for having us.
Well, it's the resident show, and thank you so much. Put it on your calendar. 27 years from now, you'll be back.
27 years. I'll be back.
All right,
Can't
perfect.
make it. Sorry.
Maybe.
We got a
I
previous
just want to thank
engagement.
everyone. This is really nice.
Thank you, Tom,
Yeah, right.
and good seeing everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Great.
Thank you.
That's a
Good
wrap.
job.
Thank you.